I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the following documents. A letter to this committee in support of the USA from the National Taxpayer Union. Without objection, so ordered. Do any other members wish to be heard?
I have an amendment at the desk now, Mr. Chairman.
Will the clerk please report the amendment?
Amendment number 1 to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4435, offered by Mr. Raskin of Maryland.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read. I reserve a point of order. The ranking member is recognized for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. My amendment prohibits budgetary reductions and program terminations that would otherwise be required by the bill unless they've been determined to have no adverse effect on the entities or populations they're designed to serve. It also changes the terms used throughout the bill from unauthorized programs, which misleadingly suggests that the programs were never authorized or are operating without legal authority in some way, to instead refer to legally authorized programs. This aligns with the determination made by the Government Accountability Office, as I mentioned previously in my statement. I have here a list of the 428 programs or activities the CBO has identified as having been funded in 2023, even though they're associated with expired authorizations for appropriation. They include the Agricultural Improvement Act, the Agricultural Credit Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, the Healthcare and Education Reconciliation Act, Every Student Succeeds Act, Improving Head Start for School Readiness Act, the Child Care and Development Block Grant, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, Every Student Succeeds Act, Higher Education Opportunity Act. That's just the first page on what looks to be about 28 or 30 pages of programs. More than half of these authorizations expired more than 10 years ago, demonstrating that both Republican and Democratic majorities understand the value and importance of the current practice we have in place, which again is perfectly consistent with the Constitution. To provide just a few more examples of what would be threatened if this bill were to become law without my amendment, the authorization for veterans' medical care appropriations. Over 9 million veterans are currently enrolled in the VA healthcare program. Do we really just want to essentially cut the lifeline for 9 million veterans because there hasn't been an authorization when Congress is voting constitutionally to appropriate money for that exact purpose which had been authorized before? The authorization for the National Institute for Health expired in 2020. This is a matter of some moment in my district because I represent the NIH and a lot of people who work there. Life without the NIH would mean severely reduced hope for better treatments and cures for devastating diseases like cystic fibrosis and multiple sclerosis and Alzheimer's disease and lung disease and colon cancer, heart disease, ALS, substance use disorders, stroke, and Parkinson's. Do we really just want to terminate all of that? The authorization for the Child Care and Development Block Grant expired 3 years ago. As of fiscal year 2020, the program served almost 1.5 million children and their families in the country. Head Start expired in 2012. That provides 1 million children in need with early education and support services. So my amendment, Mr. Chairman, I think everybody should agree belongs in this bill. If we really think that we need the shock to the system administered by this bill, all right, you guys go ahead and vote for it. But please don't send all of these dependent populations on particular programs, from veterans to children to NIH patients, off into the wilderness on their own. And I move the amendment, and I yield back to you.
Gentleman yields back. I recognize myself for 5 minutes. I unfortunately must oppose this amendment because it undermines the purpose of the bill. This legislation is intended to force Congress to give the appropriate oversight and legislative attention to individual agencies and programs within their appropriate authorizing committee. I agree with the ranking member on one point. We should indeed determine the impact of programs on affected populations. That is the entire point of the authorization process. The USA Act will force long overdue deliberations to take place. We shouldn't let ourselves off the hook by granting exemptions to various programs. Additionally, I'm not sure who would be conducting the evaluation of impacted populations under this amendment, the agencies themselves. I think I know what agencies are likely to say about how impactful all their programs are. Authorizations and determinations of a program's impact on impacted populations requires Congress. The USA Act does not impact an individual program for the first few years. This is by design to give the appropriate legislative authorization committees time to do their oversight and authorization work. For these reasons, I oppose Ranking Member Raskin's amendment. Do any other members wish to speak on this amendment? The question is now on the amendment offered by Mr. Raskin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to. The question is now on the amendment in the nature of a substitute. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk also.
All right. Will the clerk please report?
Mr. Chairman, could we have a recorded vote on the amendment?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. All right. The question is now on the amendment in the nature of a substitute. All those in favor signify by saying.
They're asking for a recorded vote on the amendment itself. We'll push it to the end, and then we'll restart with Mr. Garcia's amendments.
Okay. So a recorded vote has been requested. As previously announced, further proceedings on the question will be postponed. Okay. Clerk, report the Garcia amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is amendment number.
Wait. The clerk needs to report it first.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4435, offered by Mr. Garcia of California.
Without objection, the amendment is